I'm Sandra Ging. I'm from the Discovery Partner Institute at the University of Illinois, Chicago, and I'm one of the co-PIs since July now for SGCI for Community Engagement and Outreach. And if you have been in sessions before the lunch break, you have heard this already. So what are we talking about? So the goal is because we really like the conference and we want to move the series further on to have the interaction with the community to a community-driven conference. And that is, of course, always a big step, but also a good challenge and a chance to define the format and how it should look like. And how do we deal with all the different things going further? And so I'm here because I'm really excited to bring gateways to the next stage for the community and be involved in that. And have also a look at what kind of formats are what people really would like to see. Are we more, can we broaden the participants, and can we also maybe do it in a way that it's more attractive for a couple of different communities who might be not already at the Gateways conference, for example. We have less researchers and developers coming, which doesn't mean that it's a bad thing, but maybe it's good to have a look at a program aspect that would attract also more researchers, PIs. So that would be my take on it. And now I give it back to Lee.
Okay, great. Let's I think we're going to hear from Christopher Erdmann next, and I think let me know if I said your name wrong. My apologies.
No, that's close enough. So yeah, I'm Christopher Erdmann. I am at the American Geophysical Union, and I'm the assistant director and data leadership there. And I see a lot of from the themes this morning, some really great opportunities, definitely around the interest of this being a place where you can sort of connect with researcher stories of using science gateways, and we definitely see a lot of that, but also I think like the community aspects around how can we learn from all of you to help our authors. So we do get a fair amount of HPC related questions from authors, research computing related, not just software and data citation. So that's another area, and I think particularly around fair workflows. And I think training is another area where we're talking a lot about open science training, another area where like these communities can come together and grow science gateways, and especially with regards to NASA and their open science push now, and Sandra mentioned GoFair US, which we're both members of. So I'll leave it there. Maybe that was too long of an intro and some of the interesting things, but nice to meet all of you.
Okay, thank you, Christopher. We're going to have Gwen Jacobs speak next.
Good morning and aloha. I'm very happy to be part of this group. At the University of Hawaii and our Data Science Institute, we use science gateways a lot to support large multidisciplinary teams of investigators to both in terms of their data management, their computational workflows, and basically just supporting high-end science that requires both a disciplinary focus as well as focus from data science and cyber infrastructure. So I really see the Gateways effort as instrumental in being able to support these large and complex projects. We have a really very vibrant collaboration with our friends at the Texas Advanced Computing Center with the TAPIS framework. So the Gateways infrastructure, I think, is really very much an enabling infrastructure that helps us not only collaborate well, but also to serve our population here at UH. And because of our relatively isolated location, these gateways really are a gateway to resources that we don't have at our institution. And so we find these really essential. We use Globus as well. So I'm a huge fan of this effort. And I think that the other thing that I think is very important about the community aspect is that, especially for members of my team, Sean Cleveland and others, we have benefited so much by being able to interact with other folks that are part of the Gateways community to make sure that we're putting our best effort forward and learning from all the other efforts in this space. So huge fan, want to see this continue. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Gwen. We're going to have Ian Foster speak to us next.
Hi there, Ian Foster from the University of Chicago and Argonne. I'm delighted to be part of this activity. I've always been a fan of this Research Gateways conference and enjoyed it. And I'd like to bring, of course, Gateways as a tool for democratizing computational science and HPC are very important. I'd like to bring a different perspective, though, on the value of this particular workshop series. For me and my colleagues, it's been particularly valuable as a place where we can come and find out what are the technological requirements, what are the latest trends in areas like authentication and data access and computation access, and get rapid feedback on new approaches to those problems that we have been developing in the context of Globus, for example. So another take on why this workshop series is and the opportunity to meet with a community of like-minded people is so valuable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ian. We're going to hear from Michael Zentner next.
Yeah, I think, when we were first forming the SCI, for quite a while, our internal name of it seemed to be the Science Gateway Institute. And at one point, Catherine, who's I see is here in this session as well, said, hey, what about community? This is, half of what we're doing here is community. And that's how the word community got inserted into Science Gateway Community Institute. And for me, looking at the multiple tiers of people that have stakes in Science Gateway, from the end user gateways who almost don't even know that's what they're using, to the PIs with specific science that sponsor those gateways, to the software people that help build those gateways. And this is to me, this has been the one conference where those different kinds of people have the opportunity to get together without respect to the science that they do specifically. Everybody has plenty of time to go, or plenty of chances to go to their bio conference or their material science conference or their whatever. But to me, what I'd like to see this evolve into is not so much a place where people come to report just what they did, but where they come to report what they offer to that broader community of people who may have had no idea that such offerings even existed. And that's a different kind of value I see coming out of this potentially very multiple disciplinary audience that comes to these things that I don't see at some of the other conferences that I go to.
Okay, thank you, Michael. We're going to hear from Rajesh Kalianam, and please help me get your name right.
Oh, that was perfect. Thanks, Lee. So yeah, I'd like to start by saying this is my favorite conference of the year, and I guess I'm echoing a lot of what Mike just said. This has been a great community, and I think a big part of that is that this is maybe that one unicorn community that many of us feel we fit the best in. So I have different hats. I'm a research scientist at Purdue Research Computing. I've been in gateway design, proposals, development, all sorts of things. But I guess I'll be maybe speaking more from a developer's perspective. And I think this is one place where you can essentially apply things in practice pretty quickly. So most of the conferences, you maybe learn of a cool new technology or something that maybe you want to look at some point in the future. But then I think Gateways is a place where you can learn what others are doing. They've proved that it works in practice. People are actually using it, and you can then adapt it and use it. So when we're looking towards taking this to a community-driven sort of conference and effort in the future, I think I want to think about how we can do that best. So maybe from a developer's perspective, I think working groups are a great thing that have worked well in other places. The one thing we do need to be careful of is, and I don't want to punch on RDA here, but I don't think we want to get it too regimented and work on getting documents out and specs and all of that. I think there's a good balance to be found there with working groups producing documents versus doing actual hands-on activities and sustaining that through the year. So I'm hoping the summit that Maytal was mentioning can grow into some of this, so we can have sustained work throughout the year through that. Maybe have working groups that are working on different things so we can pool our resources and apply new technologies a lot quicker versus working in siloed groups and doing things separately. So that's my hope and vision, at least, for how we want to drive this forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Rajesh. Okay, we're going to hear from Annelie Rugg next. Hopefully, please let me know if I got your name wrong so I can get it right.
No, that was very good. Hi. Yes. Hi, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon. I'm Amelia Rugg. I am at UCLA, and I am the head of humanities technology, which is essentially an embedded technology unit in the College of Letters and Science. And I work, as you might expect, with humanities faculty. I particularly, and the digital humanities and humanities adjacent disciplines. And I'm here kind of as the wide-eyed newbie, if you will. This is my first conference, attending this version of this conference. And I was kind of surprised when Sandra asked if I'd be interested in serving on the advisory committee. And I think what she convinced me that I do bring and that I'd like to see happen with the conference going forward is an expanding and opening up to emerging entrants to computation. So the humanities is getting more involved in high-end computation and the need for it. And more so than many other disciplines, I think we haven't grown up with it. So onboarding to using the tools is the problem. And a recent example, I was trying to help a colleague in the School of Arts at UCLA find a way to host and do some 3D model rendering for an arts application. And we have our own high performance cluster at UCLA. We're very lucky that way. But the expertise there, they were not able to easily deploy this tool to do the rendering because they're not familiar with working with such customers. So I think what I'd like to see happen with Science Gateways in general, and also with the conference in particular, is welcoming people like myself and my colleagues who have really interesting research involved that requires computation, and finding gateways that exist or ways to leverage what has been done to help us join you all in this community and be part of high performance computing and other related aspects of it. And then one of the things that I'd like to see with the conference going forward that I feel has always been beneficial in many of the community-driven conferences that I have attended is the bringing of new perspectives to the event. So sort of having a rotation of who leads it, who shapes it, who decides what the structure and how it's going to run, and varying that, I think will really leverage the breadth of research and tools and approaches that people have unearthed and bring those conversations in new ways each time we meet. And that will be a really exciting way to generate essentially a new event each time we have it. So I'm looking forward to being part of those new perspectives and also seeing those brought to the fore with the conference.
Thank you, Annelie. Great. We have one final panelist, Jack Smith, will speak next.
Well, hello. I apologize for being a little bit late. I tried to get in my walk in between sessions. Got in a little late. I also bring kind of a unique perspective to this community. My research computing background goes back 55 years now, 12 years in school, becoming a computational quantum chemist, 25 years in the industry, trying to B1. And then for the last 18 years, post-retirement, I have become somewhat of a freelance computational chemist, or basically computational science in general. I think I've had something like 75 projects in the last 18 years. I've worked for about 10 different organizations. And working just about every imaginable platform and development environment that you can imagine. But more recently, I've gotten myself back into academia, and sort of in two ways. I've been with Marshall University now for about the last 10 years, working on various grant-funded projects, mostly around computational stuff. But I've also been working for the state of West Virginia in their higher education system as the cyber infrastructure coordinator for the last 10 years or so, working with higher ed and their research computing. I've recently left that position, but still continue to do some part-time work. More recently, I've gotten involved with the GeoEDF project at Purdue with Rajesh and the others up there. And even more recently, I've gotten involved in developing a Hub0 portal for the Pulsar Science Collaboratory with WVU's astronomical group, Green Bank Observatory, and the Nanograph Consortium, which is very exciting. I had built 2 different Hub0 platforms at Marshall for different projects there. So that's a nice thing to build on. I have been Marshall's Exceed Campus Champion for the last, well, actually it was during Terragrid days for a long time. So I've been plugged into the Campus Champion community for a long time, including some time on the leadership team and a couple of fellowships. I've been involved with SGCI since its beginning, all the conferences. I think I've probably got the record for the number of things I can list as SGCI participation, as a science ambassador, a Gateways ambassador, a boot camp alumni, EDS partner, conference program committees, now sponsored 2 students, interns. So this is my new home, and I look forward to this conference every year and participating in it. And as somewhat of a freelance researcher and developer, I really have no home institution really to speak of to provide me the infrastructure I need. So I really depend on things like Gateways to kind of do my work and share what I do, and also share what other people are doing. So I look forward to continuing sustaining this effort to reach out to others like myself, and also the other disciplines that have not been well represented in HPC and data intensive research. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. So I don't know if I think Sandra might be getting ready to do a Mentimeter. But if there are any questions,
so we
please
have one
put them in chat.
Mentimeter. So just also out of interest for us, and this is, so you can rank it. So you might find it all interesting, but it would be interesting to see, and I hope you see the number, and it's at menti.com. And you can rank these different activities. For example, do you go to a conference because you want to present your work? Or do you, is the main reason that you hear about work from others? So like Ian Foster said, he likes to hear what's going on in others' work also. Do you like to do something hands-on like tutorials? Or maybe, the networking is the main thing for you. That is the all over reason why you are going to conferences, or interacting with students. Maybe publication of papers, or the panels when experts discuss certain topics, or you have another topic. And now it moves around, and I hope I mentioned it all, but I mean, you can see it. I hope you fill out a couple of what is, the tutorials is definitely something hands-on. I think is always very helpful. Hear about work from others, presenting your own work. Yes, that is. So the panels and publication of papers, keynotes. Yeah. So there's an item 10. What did I do there? maybe others. That was others.
It says panels. So in other words, the thing we're doing now is the least popular activity of any.
Yeah, I know. This conference had already, this is
We've got to do better, guys.
Yeah, we have to do better.
Sandra, all I know is I always go for item 10. I mean, you know, that's why I voted for it. Item 10 is great.
Great. So yeah, we won't keep it too long here, but only to get an impression. So really the highlights are for the ones who filled it out is tutorials and hear about work from others and networking. I really like that. Yes, panels, we will work on that. And then I stop sharing now and open the space for questions and discussions. My screen is not cooperating with me.
Okay, any questions out there in the gallery? Feel free to speak up. I will start with a question. I'm wondering about the format of the conference. Like we're doing it online now. Are there thoughts about whether we're going to continue with online or only make it in person or do some kind of hybrid model? Or what I guess I'm curious about what the panel is thinking and maybe what other people are thinking.
Well, I'm happy to start with that one. I know that hybrid is already, it develops really fast and in a good direction, but I'm still not trusting a real hybrid format because I think there is still always a kind of second-class citizen, whatever kind of format you do. What I could imagine is, so we got really fantastic reviews that people said like, oh, tutorials online would be great because I have to sit at my laptop anyway. Why not doing tutorials online and having the face-to-face conference after that? So there were quite a few people who said that that could be a nice mixed model. And then we could, you know, distribute the tutorials also over, for example, 2 weeks where people can pick and nothing has to be in parallel. And so there was something. So I could imagine something like that, that, you know, we have a face-to-face again and have maybe certain aspects online before the main conference. I could see something like that working well.
Yeah, I think we had talked recently about wanting one of the benefits of the conference being that it's not too big. And so keeping, and so the benefits of that, you know, being able to actually spend time getting to know people and what they're doing and hear their stories and really get to understand them and even do hands-on work together. So definitely needs to be a certain element that's in person. But maybe one of the benefits of opening up aspects of it to being remote is enabling to broaden out for some of those kinds of activities that don't require as much interpersonal connectivity and maybe more information dissemination or that kind of thing. But doing a workshop over Zoom, probably not the first choice, right? So that hybrid and finding a nice balance where what Zoom works well for or best for, so that we can expand out to others who may not be able to attend, would be ideal.
Yeah, just to second that, I have I know we heard from Research Data Alliance recently in a sort of similar vein with data stewardship group that we're starting. We've heard from government agencies that can't really participate in Research Data Alliance meetings, you know, like and be there. And so like they've been very excited about the fact that there's this more open community for data stewardship that they can participate in, that they don't necessarily have to go to those meetings all the time. And so like that's been something that I've heard come up, which is, you know, online is, more inclusive. So.
So I did want to say, I put it in the chat, but I did want to say that I think one of the ideas we've been talking about is maybe co-hosting it with other conferences. Of course, there's the question of alignment and how well that matches what the conference's main theme is. And I know Alan also mentioned PERC and his thoughts on that. So I'm curious to hear how we would, I guess, maybe align to some of these more well-known conferences and what the value proposition would be for people attending those along with the gateways.
Well, I'll jump in here since you teed this up. Just let me first give you the general PERC perspective and where the PERC thinking is on in-person versus hybrid. And for those of you who aren't aware, PERC it's approaching 1,000 attendees, so it's a pretty good size conference. We are currently planning on it being fully in person, not hybrid, not remote next year. We surveyed the attendees of PERC 21, and the majority of attendees asked for it to be back in person. There was a rather strong minority voice of continuing to offer virtual or hybrid. And that kind of boiled down to people who say, hey, the funding is just not going to be coming back for travel or institutional limits, things like that I'm not going to be able to get that. And two, it's hey, I just don't know when I'm going to feel safe to be in big groups, and I just can't commit that far out for it. But, obviously the flip side, we already heard this here of the networking person face-to-face. I will share that the reason we're not going hybrid is the budget. It just exponentially increases the potential budget of doing anything in logistics and management. It's just incredibly expensive. And I mean, PERC, our total budget is pushing close to $1 million, and we can't afford to do a hybrid type thing. PERC is run by ACM. It's an official ACM conference, and from what I've heard from the ACM conference managers, right now in 2022, everything is coming back and planning full force to be in person. There's very few that are planning any type of hybrid or remote. Now, people might fall back on that, obviously, and we would fall back on that if need be, virtual, but we wouldn't go hybrid. So that's just kind of ours. Now, I realize Gateway's smaller. There's different factors that come into play, but just wanted to share with you kind of where we're thinking about on the PERC side. In terms of the co-hosting, co-sponsorship, or co-alignment, I personally don't like that. I think that it ends up detracting, and I don't know if there's that many people who, really, yes, there's going to be some, but I don't think there's many people that are going to benefit from it, particularly if you're trying to align yourself with a large conference or larger conference like PERC or ISC or SC, because those conferences already have 4 or 5 solid days of materials on the agenda. And so, if you try to squeeze in gateways into one day, I mean, otherwise you're going to have to do it over the weekend or something to squeeze it in. So I know that, 2-3 years ago, Gateways was co-hosted with eScience. I don't know that brought a lot to the table, but I could be wrong. I mean, I'll let others speak more intelligently to that. And then I know, obviously, I'm sure most of you are aware, SC always has every year lots of one-day workshops that are, and little conferences that are co-hosted with it. But again, it's all squeezed into one day. So, okay, that's my perspective.
saying, and only to say that it worked out well with e-science. So we had a little bit like 10, 20 more participants than normally. So it was also not a jump up, but it also was not hampering it. So, but I think what you're right about is e-science has also only 3 days. That means it's not like 5 days plus gateways. It was 3 days plus 3 days, this tutorial. So yeah.
Catherine's got a question. Go ahead, Catherine.
Oh, I was just gonna, hi, I was just gonna add to the question about e-science co-location. I think the main benefit ultimately, because the number of people, as Sandra mentioned, wasn't a lot more, was just the cost savings in our case. I mean, we didn't choose a venue because they invited us to join them at that venue, but in the long run, sharing the costs of, say, audio technical support, I mean, the people who were helping technically at the conference and some of the other kinds of things that we had to pay for, ended up substantially reducing our budget, given that it was at a hotel, and a fancy hotel at that. So so that's something that was a surprise, because I was not expecting that we would have saved money from that that endeavor.
I'll add that the American Math Society, I'm a mathematician, so they kind of have a big meeting every year, and a lot of other smaller math organizations have their either winter meeting or their national meeting at the same time and same location. It's kind of branded together. And I don't know, as a mathematician, it gives me a reason to go. I'm like, oh, I can not only go for the American Math Society, but I can go for this group and this group as well. So it's been I see that as a plus for me, but I don't know how it works with this community. I'm just speaking as myself, not as the moderator now. As the moderator, I will say Chris has a question or has a comment. Please speak up.
I was just thinking, so I'm at AGU, so naturally we're so geared towards a fall meeting that's coming up in December, and I think like that had me thinking about whether you sort of align with a big conference, or you align with the sort of smaller conference, which allows you to sort of string these conferences together. And we do have smaller conferences in AGU, but like I'm not trying to sway us in that direction, but I like the science gateways idea, e-science and gateways. That sounded great, and like I don't know how long e-science was, but it sounded like it was more manageable to string together conferences like that where a conference doesn't last for 2 weeks like AGU, or 1 week. Even if you could sort of string them together, it sounds like it might be more reasonable for people.
There's a couple comments that have come up in the chat. Jack said it might be interesting to target co-location with different conferences for a bit of variety and unexpected synergies. And then Ian says with 2 conferences, 1 virtual and 1 in person, the in-person could be co-located. Just wanted to put that out there. Okay, we got Alan. Go ahead, Alan.
Just kind of, I'm spitballing here, but wanted to offer up maybe one of the approaches should be to go the other route, and by other route I mean do something more similar to what like CARC is doing. I assume many of you are familiar with CARC, and they've got a series of monthly kind of standing calls and meetings, and I'm just wondering if that might be a way, instead of trying to define and get everybody to agree on once or twice per year, maybe a quarterly type thing where it's a a smaller 2 hours quarterly thing that might build the community, get it more engaged and focused, as opposed to trying to squeeze everything in. I don't know if that's making sense. Anybody has any thoughts or reactions to that? But
so maybe I have directly a reaction, but John had his hand up before me, so maybe first John.
No, why don't you go ahead, Sandra, because Alan raises a good question that's worth discussing right now.
Okay. So my point of view to having monthly meetings, that would be something for specific topics. I can see that. I still think that one big venue where you have all the different people coming together with the different interests would be still of much benefit. And having this really, or maybe the two conferences, one virtual like Ian suggested and one in person. And I like the idea also of maybe co-locating it with different communities. For example, if we say we want more contact to, for example, the humanity community, maybe it's good to have a co-location with one of their main conferences. And that always plays different if you are in person than virtually. So that would be my take. So I think having something like monthly meetings could work for the community to keep the community working on specific topics. But I still think we would need at least one main big event. That would be my take.
John, do you want to go ahead now?
Yeah, I was actually going to talk about Alan's previous comment where he talked about the question of having your culture subsumed in a larger conference. And I think that is a danger, and it's worth thinking about, but it's not an assumption. And the counterexample I would use is SciNet within SC, right? It's existed for over 2 decades, and yet it's remained a very peculiarly unique subculture that has persisted, but it also interacts with the larger conference quite effectively. And so, I can imagine a Gateways at PERT being a major component of PERT and also maintaining a Gateways flavor to it, much like this conference. Just as a thought. I mean, I'm kind of offering free advice for exactly what it's worth.
Chris, do you want to go forward?
Yep. Yeah, I'm inspired by what others have said. So Ian had said, I come to this to Gateways because it's a great place to learn from others and work with them. And then Sandra was saying, and similar to, I'm forgetting her full name, but it started with an A, and from previous call talked about. Thank you. She talked about these sort of stories, where from the researchers, and you kind of mentioned that too, Sandra, like the sort of researcher aspect of, you mentioned humanities, and it's similar to what we think about in AGUs, that we often end up being in a loop, talking to each other. Even though we do like connect at this meeting about sort of the topics that we've discussed here, but the sort of researcher perspective, like this so sort of their work and their stories, is something that I think is really interesting, to connect with. And maybe, having not been at the eScience and Gateways co-located session, I thought, maybe that speaks to that, similar to what you said, Sandra, that, like co-location with like humanities, or that sounds really great, because I think we have a hard time getting out of our loops and talking to researchers in a way, like including them, their stories and their research. But
We have about 3 minutes left and then the next session starts. So I know that everybody will want to get to that. So just the last couple of questions. Chris, did you want to speak again, or did I just forget to lower your hand? Okay.
I think I lowered it and then
It popped back up. Sorry. Oh, well, Michael's got his hand raised. We'll go for Michael.
Sure. I in the opening, I related a quote that had a big impact on me, but I'll relate another one here that's different. And I won't name names, but we asked our sponsors, why are you sponsoring this thing? What value do you get out of it, especially those that come year after year? And one of them said, I met one group that I would never have met otherwise, and that's been valuable enough for us to sponsor it for multiple years. And I worry that, as we consider blending with larger things, we lose the intimacy that caused this kind of interaction to occur. But I understand the attractiveness of trying to blend in with larger things as well. But again, I think when we ask questions about what really is the mission of this conference series, isn't it different than what we do with PERC and other things that are much more well established?
Yeah, I guess I'll just, I know we need to end, but as a newer entrant, I think there's a value to what Michael just said, also for those who are a little uncomfortable, feeling a little unsure. So keeping that accessibility, that feeling of accessibility in the conference, so that we need to keep that frontmost as we go forward and figure out how to do this. And I think I'm also involved in one of the researcher facing tracks in CARC and helping set those up. And I think those are wonderful as sort of digestible small bits to kind of get introduced to a community. But it is very kind of discreet. And if the topic isn't relevant, then, people aren't going to come, right? So that's the danger with that. So we have to find a happy medium, but that accessibility is going to be really key for the people that I'm here to represent.
Okay, now I think we are out of time. So thank you everybody for their questions and comments. I don't know if Sandra wants to give some concluding thoughts.
Oh, I think that Annelie said really nice concluding thoughts to make it accessible and a good group to join and good content to join. I think that is a good finalizing statement. So yeah, thanks everyone. So the next session is now the lightning talks. So I will have a look that I make the next session chair then host now.
I'm here.
Yeah, I see you. Good seeing you, Jan.
Good to see you too.
And I make you host now.
Okay. Oh, I don't need to be the host. I think the presenters need to be, right?
The presenters need to have co-hosts, yes, so that you get a chance to do that. So thank you all the panelists also, and of course the audience, and of course our moderator Lee.